wait a minute. By Maureen, a second to the motion?
Can't hear you.
No, we'll try to scream then, okay? Motion by Maureen, chair being, a second to that motion to open the public hearing. Zach Bass, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I need to read the notice of the public hearing, and then we'll go down the table so we all get into, so we all know who's on here. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Hague will hold a public hearing on the 27th day of July 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Hague Community Center, 9793 Graphite Mountain Road, Hague, New York, to hear all interested persons for or against the adoption of proposed ordinance entitled Short-Term Rental Ordinance. A copy of the proposed ordinance may be obtained in the office of the town clerk during his scheduled business hours. I'm going to start first with Jack, because he wants to make a comment about people speaking up instead of stepping up to the microphone. So we'll start with you.
Thank you for all attending. This is going to be interesting. And in order to be heard, we want you to speak up. You're going to have to come up and speak directly into that microphone. That is the only mic we have, and we want to hear what you have to say. So please come up, introduce yourself by name, and then speak directly into the microphone, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to start down at the end with Bill. Introduce yourself, please, that you're a member of the... Oh, I'm sorry, Chris is there.
Chris Richards?
Bill Fritzky, West Hague Road.
Sandra Russ.
John Mishonas.
Joshua Patchett.
John Silvestri, the attorney for the town.
Maureen Chodini.
Edgar Frazier.
Ginger Kunkel.
Ginger is moderating the Zoom session for us. Jack Bass.
Steve Ramon.
All right, thank you very much. We're glad to see such a good attendance. Hopefully we have some good questions, some good answers, some good comments. And so next I'm going to have Mr. Silvestri kind of set the stage of the meeting for us.
All right, yeah. And they asked me to just say a few words because there's been some misconceptions. This is a proposal. This has not been adopted by the board, okay? In order to get it here in front of you and to get to this point of the process, the board needed to adopt it in a form so that we could all discuss this. But this has not been adopted. And this is the part of the process where boards are not omnipotent. I don't know if you've seen it by any acts of Congress down in Washington, D.C., but sometimes they don't get all the information they need. This is information gathering. We want to know where the rubber hits the road. How does this impact you? I've seen many written constructive suggestions for amendments. Now, whether the board adopts them or not, that's a different story. But that's the type of thing we're looking for. We want input. I've also seen unfortunate threats to sue the board members individually. I would ask that you refrain from that type of thing. It's not productive. It's wasting everybody's time. If you have something constructive or you have some way that this is impacting you, by all means, let us know. That's what we're here for. So thank you for attending.
Right,
Yeah.
Could you maybe elaborate a little more, because you just cleared up some misconceptions.
Who am I speaking with?
Tony Dawson. Is it going to go to seeker? What is the...
Tony, you have to come up.
Come up to the front, please.
Identify yourself and speak up
Microphone right here.
into that microphone, please.
Hi, Tony Dawson.
Hey, Tony, nice to meet you.
Tony Dawson, 9574 Lakeshore Road. So, John, my question would be, you clarified the intent of this document. Could you elaborate a little more on if it's going to go to seeker, the Department of State, and APA?
Not at this time.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we look forward to an evening of comments, questions, some options maybe that we can take. I just ask that you each be respectful of the person. We've had many express their concerns by emails, registered letters, and phone calls. And there's a misconception about a vote being taken tonight. No vote will be taken. purpose of this meeting is to just gather some information and get your input and your feeling on this ordinance. So definitely there will be no vote. We just feel as the town board that we are concerned with the safety and well-being of our residents, and we want to do what's best for our town. I'm going to limit whatever you have to say to 3 minutes. There are many people here. When you stand, as Jack said, you need to introduce yourself, make your point. There will only be one question per person until everyone who has a question has had a chance to ask their question. And I did just want to tell you that yesterday I got the information from the county treasurer that we have 58 short-term rentals in Hayes. So I know that's all, not all, but we do have 58 people that are participating in the short-term rental process. All right, thank you. With that, we'll get started. Raise your hand, and when you're acknowledged, please come up to the table. That way everyone will be able to hear you.
I just want to say that people on Zoom are having a hard time hearing.
Okay, all
You
these-
really have to speak up because people on Zoom are having a hard time hearing. So just make sure to project as much as you can.
All right, so who would like to start with the first question?
I have a question.
All right,
If we have more
come
than,
right up here.
I taught for 38 years, trust
Okay.
me, you can hear me.
All right.
If we have more than one question,
Please identify yourself.
Sandy Smith, 9490 Lakeshore Drive, if we have more than one question, will we be allowed to finish asking questions? At the last meeting, you said you didn't care how long we stayed, that all questions would be answered, so we can keep going around and asking more than one question. Is that
Oh, yeah, I'm
correct?
just saying you can answer one
One at a
question at a
time.
time.
Okay.
Everyone has their chance, and then we can come back, and if you have 2 or 3, then we'll deal with those out.
Okay.
All right? So, who has a question?
I'm Linda Baker,
Right.
and I'm
Let's
18
look at it.
Unfortunately, the acoustics in here really are scary.
Sorry. My name is Linda Baker, and I live at H.
You need to face the other way.
Oh, I don't say, I don't.
It's confusing, I know.
Wow. My name is Linda Baker. I live at 18 Overlook Lane, which is off of Overbrook Road. I have diagonal from me a short-term rental, and I have had a really difficult time with it. So the people that own it are really nice. They're great people, but they're only there in the summer, and all the rest of the time it is rented out. And I have had some really bad experiences. And I'm alone. And so it's not easy, you know. So I'm just saying my side of it is my whole life has changed, you know.
Thank you.
Can we ask questions of you?
Yep.
So could you elaborate, Patrick Mente,
No.
West State
Ben,
Road?
excuse me, no. We're not going to allow cross-examination of the people.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can ask a question. You may ask the question, but we're not going to ask it at the end. Are we good then, Linda? Do you have anything
you're
else?
done?
Yeah, I just, you know, there's
You're
a
expressing-
lot of legitimate.
And you do have a legitimate complaint, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Yes. Come up, please, and I don't know who everybody is, so you have to introduce yourself.
My name is Bobby Leiter, and my husband and I live at 9 Robin Hood Drive, which is across the street from Cape Cod Village. And I'm happy to stand back here. I'm also a retired teacher, so I don't think you're going to have a problem hearing me.
Please, you'll have to start near.
Oh, it's that. Oh, yeah,
Pass the
terrible.
microphone.
This is it?
That's it.
Got it. So we also have an association of 8 families. We have a very small waterfront, and the house next door to us was bought in August by a real estate agent from North Jersey, and he has been renting and lying to us about what, I hope he's not on there, but you should know, about what he's done with his property, how many people can sleep there. And a lot of it is against state zoning things, and I am in favor of renting, but maybe not in an association situation in the same way, because it makes it very difficult for the 8 families to have any kind of comfort, solace, and peace when there are 15 to 20 people in a very small cottage next to us and on our beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Jody Sinquay, 12 Silver Bay Road. Quick question. I just would like to.
I can hear your name again. You're talking to the mic.
Jody, Jody, Sinquay, Sinkway, 12 Silver Bay Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just have a quick question. I'd like to hear from more people like Anita and the last lady who just came up about the direct impacts in detail. I would like to hear more detail, more specifics about what the problems are. Because I feel like we're looking at something that's trying to address problems that I don't even understand. I don't know what they are. I really don't. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Are you a short-term rental? Are you a short-term renter or not?
No, I own a house with my siblings,
Okay, that's all. I was just curious.
but I do want to know.
And I understand that. Thank you. All right, next person? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jill Mente. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have a quick statement prepared. My husband and I, we own property in Hague. We personally enjoy these properties as a family with our 4-year-old son, and we also rent them out to offset our taxes and mortgages. We are hands-on property owners, present at both cabins multiple times a week. We are dedicated to the success of this town and the greater Lake George region. We are really good neighbors, and we will continue to be. Short-term rental owners in Hague are already ensuring that the town stays enjoyable and safe. We maintain our properties and adhere to strict guidelines set forth by other short-term rental governing bodies, such as Airbnb and VRBO. We, of course, want our rentals to succeed, so we are all already doing our best to keep our properties nice and to keep our tenants screened. We have never had an issue with a tenant. Any complaints that have been voiced about certain properties are anecdotal and are not reflective of the greater short-term rental community. We welcome conversations on how to best keep it this way. The majority of our tenants are middle-class families or couples. By imposing an unreasonable 6-day minimum, the town would be alienating those people that can only afford a 2 to 3 day getaway regardless of time of year. Each one of those visitors boosts the town's economy, visibility, and reputation. Short-term rentals, as they are now, are helping the town grow. If a 6-day minimum is put in place or a 3-year waiting period, thousands of visitors would be eliminated from the area. Property owners like us would be forced to leave. Small businesses will suffer. The town will fall behind. The reasoning behind this ordinance needs to be explained. There seems to be no logical reasoning behind imposing these restrictions other than to, quote, level the playing field for hotels, which was quoted from the meeting minutes from April 2022. This seems more like a personal vendetta and a conflict of interest. We believe that the members of the board and the subcommittee are all good people, and this is not personal. However, this is how it's looking to the public. It seems you are trying to fix a problem that doesn't actually exist. You have provided no data to back up your reasoning. Please don't waste the town's time and resources on trying to regulate something that isn't an issue. There are other more pressing issues the town should be spending their time on, such as job growth, consistent power outages, and marketing for tourism. No factual data has been shared to prove to the public that there is a need for these types of extreme regulations. Only anecdotal and arbitrary conversations by a small group. Therefore, these proposed requirements, specifically the 6-day minimum and the 3-year waiting period, are extreme, they're unlawful, and they should be eliminated. Thank you.
Excuse me, could you tell me your name again? Someone on Zoom is asking.
Yep, Jill Mente, M-A-N-T-E.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Strong from Sabbath Day Point. I heard a couple of comments about things which weren't going well. I have been surrounded by 3 people who rent on both sides and on the back. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. I've noted that when I read through the proposed regulation, that there's a lot of process, and it looks like you're trying to kind of control the rental process a little bit. From the view of somebody who's choosing not to rent, I'd kind of like to know what the process is when issues come up and who I go to when I've got an issue. And also, I note in the proposed regulation that you will advise me if somebody wants to be a short-term renter next to me in one way or another. Will you also solicit input at that point prior to granting the short-term rental approval for them that may lead to any kind of perhaps restriction on the rental due to some circumstance that I have with a neighbor next to me? The last thing I would say, and it's kind of relative to the issues brought up before as well as mine, is that relative to, I think the words are peace and harmony or something like that, for neighbors, is there going to be a regulation related to the noise level? And if I missed it in the reference to that in the agreement, I would be glad to hear that either that I missed it or that there's something being contemplated.
No, we had discussed the noise ordinance and we had tried to institute it many years ago and found it was just a very difficult thing to institute.
I get that.
So at this point, we were not saying that there would be a noise ordinance in effect.
Okay, thank you for letting me
Right,
know.
you would ask, where's it's under Article 8, subsection A, that all complaints are to be directed to the Hague Zoning Enforcement Office.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
missed that.
Yeah. Excuse me.
My name's Tim Fiala, I work for the Hague Highway Department. I'm glad that you're all applauding for each other, but I can't afford to live in the town of Hague because there's outside companies coming in and purchasing up all the properties, and it's pushing out the local resident. What do y'all plan on doing about that when we get a nice 3-foot snowstorm and we can't get out there? You're gonna contract out the work, make everybody's taxes go up? Have any of you considered about the local resident? Just food for thought.
All right, next person. Here to listen to your comments and your complaints, so.
Thank you for the applause.
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't see, but I thought I saw a hand that just went up. Yes, no?
No.
Okay.
This is a good spot. Sandy Burns, 1 Locust Lane. I'm here, I think my husband is on Zoom today. We have owned 1 Locust Lane for about 10 years. We rent intermittently. We're not renting a lot right now because we are both still working. And we fully understand the intent, we believe, of this ordinance. I guess I wanted to say too, I think this is a wonderful community. I've made a lot of friends here. That I really appreciate everyone, the people who live here full time, the people who come, just in the summer. So I just want to say that this should be friendly, and that's the intent I want to leave here. So, my husband and I understand we have started renting. We follow all the ordinances, the laws that are listed on the website. We lay those out very clearly for every one of our renters we've had. We've had wonderful renters. We've met really nice people that come here. But I really want to focus on the fact that it seems like we're putting extra rules in place because of our inability to enforce the rules we already have. And so I think we need to focus on, enforcing the rules that we have instead of adding additional rules for the renters that we have. Because I do think the short-term renters that come in add a lot to this town. They enjoy this town. A lot of people started out renting, then they buy, they love this town. So the one question I do have, and I think your name, I'm sorry, I missed it.
John.
John, thank you. Does this ordinance repeal or supplement the existing town codes, especially sections 16020 and 16060?
Those are all things that have been deliberated by the board, but the answer to your question is no.
Okay, so they still exist and they're still there, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that was just one of the things I wanted to understand. So the 2 areas that I think, and I'll give a great example of this, the 6-night stay. One of our first renters that actually, we weren't even renting yet, they stayed in the house like it was when it was a bed and breakfast, were the people who run the open water swim. The people who run that, they've become great friends of ours. We've rented to them several, probably 5+ years now. They don't need to come for 6 nights to come and stay. And that's an event that really does benefit the town of Hague. I think it does. I mean, you want events like that in Hague, correct?
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we can, as long as we're following those regulations, we're not absentee landlords, we're checking on our renters, I don't see why there's a reason why there has to be a 6-night minimum. So that's first, and that would impact our ability to have people like that stay at our house. The 3-year waiting period, it doesn't affect me personally because I already own the property. But I do look at things like, for example, say you're a family who's owned up here and you use short-term rentals to pay the taxes because it is very expensive to live, to be on the lake up here. Well, if the person buying your house would not be able to rent or supplement their income in some way, that's going to take out people who could buy the house possibly. Somebody like my husband and I, who have been up here for 10 years, we do plan to retire up here. So I think, are we saying that for those houses on the lake, we only want very, very rich people to be able to own them? Or, can people that can buy and supplement by renting a little bit, can they purchase homes like that and make those decisions? So I think we're really limiting, and you're taking away buyers that could buy those houses if at some point you have to sell your house, because that happens to people. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if that's been considered.
But thank you, I appreciate those
Thank
remarks.
you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, someone else.
Was it Sandy? What
Yeah, Sandy Burns.
Burns?
BURNS, yes.
Thank you.
Ginger, how many people are on Zoom?
Oh, wait, it said, hold on. 34. Well, actually, a few, 32 probably, because we've got these.
Yes, sir. Feel free. Right up to the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Albert Fitch. I live on Shamrock Hill Road, and I have several issues I'd like to address. First of all, Hague is a very special place. I've been here 72 years. And one of the things that's so wonderful about Hague is that we haven't needed all these people to regulate us. We haven't needed the law here. We're all decent people. We've all been friends. When we have a problem, we don't need to weaponize some ordinance to go after our neighbor and then start this chain of, I'll get you back. I'll find something wrong that you're doing. We've gone over to the fence and met each other at our fences, and we've worked it out without any problems whatsoever.
Excuse me.
I've been told.
They can't hear you. Can you speak? I'm sorry about that. They can't hear you on Zoom. So can you?
Oh, on Zoom?
Yeah.
Can I hold this up?
Sorry.
Would anybody like an old crooning tune?
I think I don't know if you can hear me, but I think it's actually your microphone that's operating the computer that's the operational microphone. We're not getting any sound from the microphone is done.
I have to talk to my audio guy.
Next board meeting, we should discuss getting microphones on stands for all.
How about now?
Well, can you say a few words and see if they hear you better now?
Can you hear me better now?
No, this is not new. That's new.
Not still to speak.
I thought that.
Well, let me continue talking.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lynch, you said we should continue.
Talk loudly.
So anyway, what I've observed here is that we have all worked things out by ourselves. We didn't need anybody else to step in. I've heard from a number of people in the back that have been researching this, that there isn't a single complaint really on file that was actionable. So why in the world would we need to have a committee or someone on a board that would basically would start logging these things and be available to sort of handle something? They can't handle. They can't come running to our door and say, knock it off. It's after 10 o'clock, you have to be quiet. The police have to be called. If that happens, we'll call the police. We don't need some other agency within our lovely little hamlet of a town, our little brigadoon, to come after us with paperwork and fines and then threaten us or actually use their position to basically shut us up. I don't want that to happen. It's happened all over the country. The last place in the world that it should happen should be in this beautiful little town. We have our own agencies that regulate us. Not only do we have things like Airbnb that we strictly have to follow, and that if we don't follow, then we get penalized. The algorithms push us down at the bottom. The other agency that takes care of these problems is the marketplace. If you don't do a good job and you aren't committed to excellence, you lose your business. You're out of business. We don't need someone to actually tell us that. We do it automatically. And that's what makes success. Not having people chasing us and arguing with us. The other thing, as far as this gentleman's concern about affordable housing,
Yeah.
when I grew up here, most of my friends lived on the lake or just off of the lake and in town. I can hardly think of a single one that hasn't been driven back into the hills, into another town, or completely out of state because of the increasing tax burden that everybody shares here. The reason that we're renting, fine, after we've been here almost 80 years, after 80 years, is because the taxes have gotten to a point where I'm not going to be able to keep my houses up and turn them over to my children and their children if it keeps going on this way. So we have to do something to be able to generate a little bit of income to offset this tax burden. I'm sorry that there is no affordable housing for you.
Yeah.
But it's not your fault, it's not my fault.
No, it's not.
It's the tax burden that all of us face, and some of them are so ridiculously high. Anyway, I've said my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Yes.
My name is Pete Maltese. I live at 51 Overbrook Road in Hague. And we came here an awful long time ago. When I was 17, 18, we started in Westport and we migrated down to Lake George. And I've been now 71 and I live there to retire. I don't live there to rent. I've been offered money by many people to Airbnb my home because it's a nice sized home, and I refuse to do that. I don't want to do that to my neighbors because I would not, if I'm in Florida, I don't have control over what goes on in that house. And I can't expect my neighbors to call the cops. Cops have no business coming to anybody's home and giving a tenant dispute or a neighbor dispute and making I was also a retired police officer. So I know that the cops have hands are tied. They can't come in and do anything. They can refer you to the town's ordinance and they can refer you to the local laws, but that's all they can do. Or go to court and work it out. That's what they tell you. That's what I used to say. I love the idea that people come in, they prosper, they want to rent out their property, and they need to survive, as that gentleman said. And I enjoy yourself on the lake. That's what I want. And if we don't have rules, that's not going to happen. I'm not saying harsh rules, I'm saying, but we all need to discuss it, we all need to have a say, and let's live and be happy. That's all I have to say.
Oh, we have someone on Zoom. Who do we have, Ginger?
Andrea Siska?
Oh, he wants to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, can we just have her ask the question?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Siska. I'm an attorney for Peter and Carol Siska, who are the owners of 8 Silver Bay Road in Hague. They have been the owners for nearly 20 years and have been renting their property for approximately 15 of those years. On occasion, they're year-round renters, they're year-round residents rather, and they do rent the property on occasion to defray costs. I guess my question for the committee primarily is there anybody on the committee that is an owner of a private residence that is not rented for commercial purpose, so it's not a hotel or a motel or a bed and breakfast or something of that sort?
What was the question again?
My question is whether there's anyone on the committee that is an owner of a private residence that is rented on occasion, but is not actually rented for commercial purposes. So it's not a hotel, a bed and breakfast, a motel, or something of that sort.
Andrea, can I ask you what's the relevance of that question to the wording of the ordinance or the enforcement of the ordinance or the processes being followed to this point?
And I'm sorry, your name was, sir?
My name is John Silvestri. I'm the attorney for the town.
Hi, John, nice to see you. Yeah, the relevancy is directly related to the purpose, the scope, and the regulations that are sought to be imposed by the ordinance, which are predominantly related to commercial establishments. For example, weekly garbage pickup.
Right, I understand that, but what does the personal business dealings of any board member have to do with anything we're discussing here today?
Well, it goes directly to their bias and the desire to impose
Okay,
the law.
well, those are issues you could certainly raise in the context of a lawsuit if you believe there was some basis for that, but I don't think your question is a proper question.
I think the general public and the owners in the town of Hague, or taxpayers in the town of Hague, deserve to know the makeup of the members of the committee, and I don't see why that's an issue for the committee to divulge.
I think you're entitled to any information about the committee members that's a matter of public information. Their personal business dealings are none of your business. It's certainly protected and confidential information. So your question is improper, and I'm going to direct the board members not to answer you. And if you have a problem with that, you know your proper remedies in the court of law.
There's a code of ethics online.
Did the board receive my letter?
Yes, yes, yes.
Let Andrea finish, and then, so Andrea, go ahead with your question.
Did the board accept my letter?
We all received it, yes.
And was it disseminated to the general public vis-a-vis the town website?
No, I did not. I just made sure that each board member got it because I thought that was the intent of your letter, was for the board members to read over before the meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about that? Am I supposed to take all of the letters that the town receives and put them on the website if they're addressed to the town board members, or is that private, or is that?
We'll see what John has to say. I thought they were for the board members. I didn't think it needed to go on the website so everybody in town.
Because as the town clerk, I don't receive the letters, and the town clerk's office is the one who's responsible for the website. So
I certainly would be subject to a FOIL request, and if somebody requested it and wanted copies of it, the copies could be provided to them.
thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Patrick Mente, we own a short-term rental on West Hague Road. I speak of truth, I speak of facts, and I speak of law. I choose to speak of this over emotion, hearsay, and friendships, and anecdotal information, and personal guarantees.
Patrick, please stay close to the microphone.
Okay. If what the short-term rental committee and others have said has any validity, you have to show us all the factual information. Show us the data sets. Show us what these complaints are. You have to prove it to us. We're just hearing that somebody had a complaint down the road 3 months ago. That doesn't hold any weight with us. When we make decisions with our business, with our construction business, it's data-driven. Show us the data. Show us the facts. We've heard none. Okay? And we're hearing these things about complaints of parties and noise and 20 people staying at one home. Show us the facts. Show us where and when the Warren County Sheriff's Office was contacted regarding any short-term rental in Hague. Show us proof that it takes the Sheriff's Office 2 hours to get to Hague in the event of an emergency. We hear of this public health and this public service. I called Sheriff LaFleur's office. I talked to Megan in his office 2 weeks ago, and I said, how long does it take you to get a deputy to Hague? She said, from Lake George, 30 minutes. She said, we have northern cars and northern deputies out of Chester. If there's an emergency, they could be there in minutes, and if not, the New York State Police will respond. She said, for anybody to say that it takes 2 hours to get a deputy from Lake George to Hague in the event of emergency is just absurd. So it's data. We make the call, we find out. We don't just say it takes 2 hours to get somebody to Hague. Show us the data that LLCs and corporations are buying the majority of homes in Hague. My colleague and Fred Leader will tell you that that's not the case at all. Prove it to all of us that this entire ordinance from its inception should be completely repealed and thrown out as it's a violation of the current zoning laws as well as a clear-cut conflict of interest within the short-term rental committee. Show us proof that by requiring a 6-day minimum stay during any times of the year would any way help anybody but the hotels and motels in town. In an email dated to me, dated July 10th, Jonathan Smith, a member of the short-term rental committee, stated the minimum 6-day rental from May through September was to, quote, reduce tenant turnover during peak season to benefit neighbors and discourage weekend parties. Example, wedding parties. Again, where is the proof of these parties? Where are they happening? Have these parties been reported to authorities? Are these parties only happening on the weekends? You have to ask yourself these questions. We're not getting these facts. Has the committee reviewed the current New York State and Hague zoning laws prior to setting an arbitrary floor for a length of stay? Furthermore, it's awfully rich of anyone on this committee to assume that a middle-class family can afford to spend money on a 6-day minimum vacation regardless of time of year. The 6-day minimum would now segregate those who are less fortunate from those with means and those who have limited time to travel. The short-term rental owners have been asking ourselves, what is this committee trying to protect? Why are members of this committee so concerned about who rents our private dwellings, for how long, and at what time of year? Here's one possible reason why. In an email dated July 6, 2023, Alice Patchett, owner of the Trout House Village Resort, stated, and I quote, we have seen a steady decline in our business due to short-term rental competition. I will repeat that. In an email dated July 6, 2023, to me, Alice Patchett, owner of the Trout House, stated, we have seen a steady decline in our business due to short-term rental competition. If that doesn't reek of a conflict of interest, we'll let a judge decide.
What's that got to do with what we're talking about?
If there's in black, it's right there in black and white. Short-term rentals are the competition. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I'm watching, so he was getting it done.
Mary Lou Doolin.
Hague, New York.
Hague is not the Wild West. I lived in Hague I have been living in Hague 35 years. It's a beautiful community. The sense of community is profound. If we have a situation where the population is going to be accelerated, 20 more people in one mansion or one house, as has happened when 2 to 4 people would be allowed. That's specific, and I'll direct you at the end who the person is. I don't want a community of strangers. I've heard that term, and it fits perfectly here. But also for people to come in and criticize a beautiful
business that has just done a wonderful job, a family business. Sounds like jealousy to me, more than worried about what you were worried about. I think that the most important thing is the lake. And we're going to have more jet skis leaking. We're going to have more abuse of the lake. This is a national treasure. And we cannot live in a community with no regulations as to what the population, who just think it's their playground instead of a treasure, and have a sense of stewardship. You just come in like gangbusters, and it's infuriating to me.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Yes.
Can I just remind the speakers, I'm sorry if we're having trouble with the microphone, but the people on Zoom have suggested that you face, I know it seems like you should face the audience, but you really probably need to face the board.
Can we put the microphone on a chair?
I think
that
I
have
would-
a loud voice, too.
That would be wise.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked me what.
I think it's really
If you
important
don't
that
mind, could you try, could we do a test with you? If you could hold it and then speak like a couple of sentences.
Hello.
Just state your name.
Okay. Sue Maltese. I live on 51 Overbrook Road.
May I put a chair there?
A couple of people have mentioned they want to be specific about the problems that the people have that live here full-time. Years ago, I was a renter. I rented on Black Point Road. We had a family, my children and grandchildren, my husband and I. 10:30 at night, the next door neighbors that were also renting were doing naked backflips off their dock. I was trying to lay down and go to sleep, and we asked them over the fence, like you gentlemen mentioned, and they got louder and more naked, and they were doing backflips. I called Ticonderoga Police. Now I can verify that. We were up in Ticonderoga, and they told me over the phone it would take 45 minutes for a guy to get there at that time. And I can verify that because I know that time of the year if you want verification. And by midnight, they showed up and they stopped these people in their tracks, and we complained to their owners. That's one of the things. My neighbor Linda down the block has had trouble with her place, right down the block from me off of Overbrook Road, with renters. She didn't get specific with me. The only thing she mentioned to me was parking. They were right in blocking her driveway, getting into her house. And you know, you can't call somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning. Who do you complain to? She's a single woman, older, 70 years old and older, I don't know. It's a problem with living here, the type of living that we want to do up here, and what Mary Lou said, the lake, that's abuse of the lake at the same time with weekend warriors up here. And the idea of having a 6-day, I think, is so you don't have these weekend warriors up here. That's what a party is. That's about it. I gave you a few things. I can verify everything I was saying.
Thank you, sir.
We're just going to try something else. I'm going to put this computer because it seems like maybe this is the computer that has the microphone. So I'm going to put this computer over where people, actually, if you just come up to this table to speak, that might work better. We'll try it.
All right, who wants to speak next?
Thank you. I should stand near here? I can even fold it up a little. Hello, this is Joel Wright at Pine Knoll in Silver Bay, New York. And I just, I want to think about a bit of human nature and how if we look back over our lives, there's times when we've been not so good and sometimes good. And I think that plays out at different times during our life, when we are our best selves and when we might do something inappropriately. And I think right now we're reacting to a portion of people that have come in and haven't acted their best, just like perhaps we haven't at times. I know that I can speak to when I was younger, I made some bad choices. I don't think I did naked backflips, but I know I probably did some stuff that might compare to that, and some people didn't appreciate. And looking back on myself and the character, the way I want to live, I'm not proud of some of the moments that I've had in my past. And so, you know, as a community, how can we respond to those periodic things that happen in an appropriate way? And how can we empower each other to take care of what we're responsible for, and also know that our neighbors will help take care of things as well, because we would do that for them. And we all know lots of people in the community. We all don't know everyone, but we know enough of people that if we worked together, we could generate greater well-being and positive impact for the entire community. And so right now I'm hearing lots of lines being divided and set. We need the Trout House. We need individuals' ability to rent. We need more businesses in community. We need to figure out how to continue to work together, and perhaps maybe we can be a model for other places. But right now I hear lots of divisiveness that's grounded in emotions that are appropriate, because we are emotional beings. And so how do we keep this in mind as we move forward to address something so that the majority of the time everyone can live here complaint-free or be here complaint-free? And I don't know if it's going to matter if it's 2 days or 5 days or 30 days, or if somebody's been here 5 years, 50 years, or 80 years. We all at times act appropriate and inappropriate. And how do we find a way to address that when it happens?
It seems like this is the computer where the microphone's working. So I don't think you actually have to hold it. I think if you just stand near it. But it's the only place I can let people in that are in the waiting room. So, okay.
Alice, come on up. Alice was a member of our committee, and I know we have a lot of criticism over that about being the big conflict, but we had checked with our attorney before we even set up this committee to make sure there wasn't a conflict, and his comment to me was he thought she'd be an excellent member to be on this committee. So for those of you who are very critical of the fact that she was on the committee, we did check it out before we put her on there, and I just feel she contributed a lot to it. Thank you, Alice.
So my name is Alice Patchett, 9117 Lakeshore Drive.
Alice, so this is the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
If you just speak
Yep.
closer to it, you can look around. But,
Yep.
Okay.
So the gentleman was right when I said we have seen a decrease, not during the summer, but in the shoulder months. That's just true. That's the honest goodness truth. That has nothing to do, that's our new issue. The same with employment. We are having a terrible time getting housekeepers, and the reason is there's 75, 80 short-term rentals, and there's a lot of people in town that they can make cash money. And so all of a sudden, I've lost 2 housekeepers that were here for one 15 years and one 5, because they're making more money renting. These are all our problems. If any town in this county needs short-term rentals, it's Hague. I can count on one hand the amount of places you can stay at a commercial resort, motel. We don't have anything. So yes, we need them. But the other thing is these private rentals are in fact the new tourist accommodation. Do they need to be under the same guidelines as the Trout House or the Hague Motel and all the things we have to do? Absolutely not. They should not, because they are not a commercial business. They are just renting out their home. However, there needs to be rules and regulations to protect the neighbor next door, and even to protect the people that are renting. So we have to go through Warren County and the Warren County Department of Health to test the water, to make sure you have a fire extinguisher, a smoke. The short-term rental, they don't have to have that jurisdiction. However, this town board is in fact, and I don't know if they all know this, they are in fact the Board of Health for any short-term rental. So it is up to this board to make sure that the safety of people that are renting their accommodations, they have good, in my opinion, they should be testing the water once a year. They should be going in, making sure they have a smoke, they have a fire extinguisher, they have carbon monoxide, because there is some liability on this town board. And whether you know it or not, there is. So they should definitely not be scrutinized like we are. They have one house. It's a short-term rental, but there has to be some rules and regulations in place.
That doesn't have anything to do with minimum stays or how long you own your home before you can rent it. That has nothing to do with stays.
Okay, excuse me, Alice has the floor. So raise your hand now.
The only thing I can say about the 3-year thing, actually, what's the saying? The horse already left the barn, something like that. So the last 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of the properties have been bought up and people are renting them. And that's why Tim is saying he lives here. I live here 37 years. I raised 6 kids here. That is why he is saying that the average Joe cannot afford to live in this town. It's almost too late. It's almost.
Listen, I'm going to ask the public to keep the comments to themselves. If you have something to say, you'll have an opportunity to come up here and say it right now. Excuse me?
I was talking to Steve.
Alice Patchett has the floor. I expect you to give her the respect and let her speak her mind. If you've got something to say afterwards, you want to come up here and stick your tongue out, come up here and stick your tongue out, okay? Otherwise, okay, I'm sure it's very personal.
Alice, finish up, please.
So it's almost too late, but I think the reason why the committee wanted to put the 3-year thing is to try to prevent and slow down any more movement for short-term rentals and try to get people that are going to be part of our community and be on the boards and be employed and go to our churches. That does not happen when you have short-term rentals, unless Mrs. Mente said, well, she is part of the community. She does come, so that's a wonderful thing. But a lot of people, those houses are vacant for most of the year. And then the 6-day thing, this is the last thing I said. The reason why I think the committee was in favor of that is because my opinion, is that you're more likely to get a family if you have somebody that's there a week. At least our 37 years, we get beautiful families. They come for a week. Lake George Village, they're in and out, and they get some wild and crazy people. That doesn't necessarily happen but it can happen. So everyone has to have some rules.
Thank you, Alice. All right, we had people in the audience that were trying to talk over Alice, so if you wish to say something.
Lara Smith Ryder, 841 Battle Hill Road. Regarding the 3-day rental, I completely disagree. We get families, most of ours are 3 and 4 days, some are 6 days, but they're families, and this is an expensive town. People aren't coming up here to go to like Lake George, well, they're not in Lake George Village, they're not in Miami, they're not the Jersey Shore. They come up here to get away, they want the peace and quiet. So I've had no experiences with having bad tenants. I mean, they're all middle class, upper class people that come here with their families. And some of them can't afford 6 days. And if you think that deterring people from going for 3 days, they can only afford a 3 days. They can't come to Hague. They're going to go to Bolton. They're going to go to Lake George. They're going to go to Putnam, wherever. They're going to find a 3-day because that's what they can afford. And as far as the 3-year minimum, I mean, COVID had a huge effect. I mean, the market, I mean, people were just buying houses just to get the heck out of the city. They wanted it, and now these people, maybe they can't afford to, you know, they can't stay up here full-time anymore. And they want to rent their houses out to offset some of the taxes, because the taxes are outrageous. I mean, the school taxes are, you know, that's a whole nother issue. I know I had a couple other things, but...
You forgot.
Yes, I have forgotten in the heat of the moment, so...
Thank you, Laura. Someone else? Yes.
You understand a bit?
Over here. Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name is Mark Eustace. I live 11 Eustace Drive, right across from the Indian Health. My family's owned property here since I was born, 1952. Nobody's brought this up, but short-term rentals are nothing new in Hague. My father used to rent out cottages. The people next door to me rented out cottages. All the people north of me rented out cottages in the 60s. That's the way you did it. And that hasn't been brought up. This is nothing new. Everybody's acting like, oh, short-term rentals, these buildings, this DRO, blah, blah. This has been going on for a long time. And so sometimes you get a bad renter. But I know in our case, we're trying to keep our property and our family. We need to rent, 4 weeks in the summer, 5 the rest is family time. But I need that. I don't live here full time. I might soon. My parents ended up retiring to this community. They were short-term renters. They came up here and retired, lived the rest of their life up here. My sister lives up here. We all got a taste of Hague when we were young, and the beauty of Lake George. But I do have a concern with this 6-day minimum. Most of our renters, we're 50-50. We have a weekly rate, and we have a 3-day minimum. But I have never seen any difference between the people that come for 3 days. In fact, most of them are older couples, and they've never been to Hague. They just want to check it out. They're not going to come up here for 6 days. Some people comment 3 days was enough for Hague. They thought they were going to Lake George Village. They thought there were attractions for their kids. They thought there were restaurants. And I get phone calls. Where can we go to eat up here? And I can't. What can I tell? When I was a kid, we had the Indian kettles. We had live music all night long there, every weekend till 4 a.m. We grew up with that. That was part of the lake experience. I'm not saying it should happen again. We lived through it, and listen to Big Jim. But anyway, I do have that 3-day rule. That'll hurt. And on our goal, my wife and I, is to keep this property in our family, be able to turn it over to our kids, have them have a chance to make some money so they can hold on to it. Because the taxes, as you know, are going up and up and up. And We really don't get much for our taxes in the town of Hague. There's not very many municipal services that I get as a taxpayer that I get at home. There's no garbage collection. I'm not on the sewer system, so now I'm gonna have to replace my septic system because of LGPC. I hope you would consider running that sewer system all the way for everybody in town, because it's gonna be a big problem for us at the northern end. I know, I should have prepared better. Anyway, thanks for letting me talk. That's my main concern. The 6 days, I'll see you out.
Okay, anyone else? Yes. Matt? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand, Sam.
Okay, my name's Sandy Smith. My family's had a house in Hague for 50 years.
Ma'am, please talk.
Okay. Can't believe you can't hear me.
I can hear you, but they can't.
Oh, okay. So my family's had a house here for over 50 years. I now do short-term rentals. I rent 4 weeks each year. Sometimes I did 5. I needed to do a dock. It was 18 inches too long. I had to shorten it, get a dock, so whatever. I went through the ordinance and I literally went down article by article. And there are a couple of them that I have questions about. And I would like some answers on them before you finally decide on what you want to do. One is Article 8B, possible violation. Nothing is stated as to proof of a violation. Is it a violation just on a complaint? We have video cameras located on our property. Are video recordings proof of a false complaint? If false complaints are made and an investigation by a ZEO is needed, are false complaints subject to fines as well? This needs to be taken into consideration. Therefore, complaints should be of a serious nature and not just children laughing, splashing, and making noise in the lake, disturbing my peace. These penalties that apply to STR should be equal to the false complaints. Repeated and endless complaints must be added to the ordinances that you are doing. All right? And let me know, I'll go over another article.
Thank you.
Well, you know I don't need this microphone, but I'll abide. Anyway, some of you know me, I'm Pat Hincy, I live on the West Hague Road. Am I against short-term rentals? No. I guess what I can understand, like when there's issue, I think maybe they need to contact the owner and maybe make sure the people who are violating whatever rules we may have them research and check out their rentals better. And maybe there wouldn't be as many issues as we have. Like they said, we haven't had no complaints on files. I don't know that for sure. But there's one thing I do know. And this doesn't necessarily have to do with short-term rentals. It has to do with the town of Hague. I bought my property in Hague 39 years ago with the intention of retirement. When I grew up here, there were 20 kids on my block, at least. But I never lived here until 13 years ago, full time. I was here summers, I was here in the winters. There's one thing I also know. Back then, you had more places to rent than you have now. So and anybody who's been here that long knows what I'm saying is true. And so we're having short-term rentals come in, if they have good tenants, I don't see where that should be a problem. If people put in complaints, then maybe the owner of the house needs to be contacted and to address the issue. Because I heard a lot of people say here today, they rent and they've never had a problem. So I think it may be how people screen their renters. So all I say to that is, hey, I was told all those years ago I wanted to retire here. And if you look around this room, I know Pat Hincy is not the only person that didn't grow up here who ended up buying here and living here full time. We expect people to just buy a house in Hague and live here full time, which Hague is a beautiful place. Everybody knows I love it. I'm very involved. But there's not a lot of job opportunities in our area, which is why when I believe, and I could be totally out of line, but I don't believe we're ever going to draw a lot of people until they're like me now, a senior, old and want to retire here, which was my point when I bought here when I was 29, to retire here. So I think a lot of people buy with that intention in mind, to retire here because it's a great place to live. And unfortunately, all the businesses that were once businesses sold into residents, and now it's even fewer places to eat. So I'm just saying we need to think about having more places here that not only rent the short-term rentals, and if there's a problem, speak to the owners and put them on notice. And then maybe Linda could have no issues. I feel for her because she's alone, like me. So I feel like strangers next to you all the time. But that's all I have to say. And I appreciate all that you guys did and all the work you did. But I think we need short-term rentals with something in place. Because we know we have other things on the books, what someone else said about noise and this and that. But we have no one to enforce the stuff. So maybe we need to have someone who could look up who's renting short-term rentals, you know, and check on those houses, see how many people are staying in them. You know, that's all been an issue for years. And then if they see that person's violating all these things, then fine them. But I think there needs to be a system to help, and that everybody's doing their bed tax stuff. So we do get the money that the town should get. I think we should consider hiring somebody to keep track of all of that stuff and contact them, or even stop by there, or whatever is legal, to put the ordinances we have in place, somebody to check on them, even check on the new rentals coming in. You know, if they're only allowed 10 people, go there, you see 12, 14 cars in somebody's parking lot, and there's only 10 people in there. So, you know, just find a way that we can contact people. That would be my suggestion. And that's from, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know more than half of this room are transplants from somewhere else who have built Hague and helped build Hague for the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Ginger has something that she wants to read, then Tony, you can come up after she's done. Ginger?
Okay, so this is from Cheryl Corsi, 274 Silver Bay Road. Part of the solution might be part-time summer police, public safety officers to quickly address these concerns. I agree that there should be a minimum health and safety standard established. I wish that we could come up with a solution for the labor issues, a clearinghouse of workers, or a referral system.
Okay. All right, thank you. Tony?
Just stand here, is that going to be?
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening all. Tony Dawson, 9574 Lakeshore Drive, formerly known as Indian Kettles. As you know, I, along with many others, are actively opposed to the proposed short-term rental ordinance, and we have offered very compelling information to support our position. We have previously submitted multiple correspondences, so much so that during the July 11th meeting, on record, the supervisor referred to our correspondence as emails no longer. I am not going to waste the time restating the content, only go on record tonight confirming we are on record, along with a letter dated July 10th from Herzog Law Firm. There is no doubt we have heard from a lot of people tonight, some in favor, some opposed. If this board feels so strongly that there's a need for some type of regulation, that is fine. However, there's a right way and a wrong way to achieve this. This proposed ordinance is the wrong way. This is the wrong way because it is nothing other than a shortcut attempt to illegally amend the existing zoning laws. Real estate investments are typically one of the larger investments one makes in a lifetime. As a result, buyers must do their due diligence before closing.
Tony, can I just interrupt you for a second? They're having trouble hearing you. Can you just talk this
Sure.
way? Sorry.
As a result, buyers must do their due diligence before closing. I assure you, each of us here tonight participating in short-term rentals did. We reviewed the existing laws, and we made the investment because we knew we had a permitted use by right to participate in short-term rentals to help offset our carrying cost. Just as we did our due diligence, the neighbor that may be opposed to short-term rentals also holds the same responsibility. And they knew, or should have known, that short-term rentals are a permitted use and a real possibility that they could be living close to one. If this board has decided they want or need to regulate short-term rentals, the right way to go about it is to amend the current zoning laws. This would grant people currently participating in short-term rentals protection as a prior non-conforming use. It would also require future buyers to do their due diligence and comply with whatever revised zoning law is adopted. This would be a very fair and equitable resolution, and I think I speak for all of us here tonight when I say we would support this simply by not opposing it. I feel we have done an excellent job communicating our issues, the challenges this proposed ordinance poses, the potential personal liability to individuals, and financial liability to the taxpayers of the town of Hague. Tonight, I encourage you not to take this approach. Instead, amend the zoning laws, as it will provide you with the opportunity to get exactly what you're looking for. It will be enforceable, and it will be fair to property owners that currently own and participate in short-term rentals. Now I'd like to respond to some of the comments that were made earlier. The lady that lives in the homeowners association. You can fact check this, but a homeowners association, you can typically do what you want to do and you can have your own enforcement actions in a homeowners association. It was previously stated, but I'll say it again. There's absolutely no evidence that short-term rentals have in any way affected property values in the town of Hague. I have submitted to the town in one of my correspondences. So this lady here that accused the allegation of abuse of the lake. There is no abuse of the lake. The lake is beautiful. We love it. And we protect it. But in addition to us protecting it, we have the sheriffs, we have the Lake George Park Commission, we also have the New York State Police Department that's patrolling it. And anybody that's putting in launching boat in here is subject to inspection before launching. So there's no abuse of the lake.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
You can. I never promised you a rose garden.
Yeah, but did you?
Excuse me a second. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Everybody's talking about short-term rentals and the issue with them. Let me just point out the risk of long-term renters versus short-term renters. If you have a bad short-term rental, they're gone in somewhere between 3 and 7 days. If they're bad eggs, we don't rent to them next year. In addition to that, we give them a bad review on HomeAway or VRBO. So we are policing this. We have our properties up here are high values. We vet our renters, and we don't get somebody that's going to destroy our property. We get them in there to preserve the quality of our property as well as the lake. If you have long-term renters, you got to tolerate them for as long as they're there. It could be a year. It could be 3 years. And you're stuck with them. In response to Alice, you brought some very good points up. 160-61 outlines what we have to comply with, which includes smoke detectors, septic systems, occupancy calculation limitations. We also get into drinking water sources. This is all information that we have to have on display within 5 feet of the front door entrance of our property. When I first met you at the last meeting, we agreed that instead of creating new ordinances, let's start with the basics, which is applying and enforcing the laws and the ordinances that we currently have. It's a very practical approach.
Tony, just one little comment.
You know that, but I can guarantee you there's many, many short-term rental owners that don't even have a clue about that. And it's about enforcement, which unfortunately this town's never done.
Alice, it's the same for everybody. Thanks.
And Tony.
Alex, you bring up a good point, but it also makes my point. If we don't have the resources to apply and enforce the simple things that are on this one piece of paper, what chance do we have having some zoning enforcement officer come along and do the jobs that he's currently got and then read and interpret a 12 or 14-page document and try and apply that to short-term rentals or long-term rentals? The reality is the zoning laws that exist in the town of Hague today, TR1 is my property, I can recite them to you. We have a permitted use by right to either occupy it or rent it, or hire it. There is no line in the sand saying 6 days, 30 days, 28 days, whatever you want to call it. And the ordinance as it's drafted right now, the definitions are not there to support the terms in it. It's a disaster. We're dealing with garbage in a short-term rental ordinance. I'm here to tell you, I as a property owner, I'm the first one that should be found guilty of the garbage cans out in front. Not by design, because when we're home and we had Ace Card and go to JP Waste, we had 10 garbage cans there. JP Waste said, leave them out front, we're going to collect them. Guess what? They never collected them. We're not a violator, but if we do leave on a Sunday, we leave the garbage curbside so that it can be picked up, and then we ask our neighbor to bring them back for us.
Tony, are you almost done? Because I've given you more than 2
Do you
minutes.
want me to be? Then I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Albert Fitch, Emerald Hill, Hague, New York. After listening to all this, I remembered a great story.
Can you talk directly into here, please?
And as loudly as you can.
And as loudly as you can. Okay, thank you.
I remembered a great story. And I think this story speaks to what's going on here. What we have here is a tempest in a teapot. There are no great, terrible safety issues here with all these crazy parties going on. When my brother was a sophomore in college, the town of Hague advertised for a police officer to patrol Hague and to be able to snuff out the huge crime wave that was going on in Hague. So they hired my brother. Hague did not have a police car. We used a 1951 Woody station wagon that had mats in it that were transmission oil soaked, so that if he went more than 40 miles an hour, smoke would start pouring through the floor, and whoever he was chasing would then stop up ahead and start laughing and waving. Anyway, after that first year, they decided that the crime in Hague was so bad that they were going to have to get their own police car with a cherry picker or whatever it's called on top, give them a .357 Magnum, and then have them basically try to sort of. Ginger remembers this story, I know she.
Not because I ran into it.
To try to sort of slow all the problems down the Hague. At the end of the year, or that wasn't good enough, they then hired a deputy for him to have because it was out of control. My brother told me at the end of the year, when I asked him, what were some of the greatest obstacles that you faced? What criminals did we have? What violations did you have? He had to go up to the Smith farm up on West Hague Road and put one of their cows back in over the corral. Outside of that, it was nothing. So here the town of Hague took our taxpayer dollars. They decided that there was a problem. There was no problem. Everybody paid for it for 3 years, and they finally said, you know what, this isn't looking good. We'll drop it. And I think that's what we have going on here. There's no reason for any of this whatsoever. All of us are law-abiding, well-wishing, willing to work it out, members of this community that the last thing that we want to do is to snitch on someone or to sort of weaponize some ordinance to go after each other when it's so simple to just talk it out.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Okay, yes.
You're going to ask me to speak in there? I have a very big mouth.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Zakarenko. I live at 386 West Hague Road. First of all, about cops, I just want to tell you a very funny story. I've been here 30 plus years. I came here with my parents. I was 18 years old, came up skiing one night for a weekend. And as me and my girlfriends pulled into the house, there was a man driving around in this really strange looking vehicle. And I called my dad. What do? Call the cops. And the cops showed up 3 hours later. But before they showed up, that man knocked on my door and he said to me, I was just checking because I saw lights on. It was the man down the street. We're neighbors. I've been here 30 years. I was a stranger, but now I know all of you. And I have friends. I'm nervous. I'm usually not a nervous person. One thing I want to say is, my husband and I, as I said, we are on West Hague. We have a property, had a corner. We now have one behind us. We met the owners. They were the nicest people. I know if I have a problem, I can contact him. Go to him, tell him, this is what's going on. And I, only meeting him a few times in person, I know that he would resolve it. Gentlemen back here, we just need to go over the fence. That's all. Well, that's it.
Do you have anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mike Gallo. I own a home with my brother at 9488 Lakeshore Drive. My family and I have been coming here to Hague for 55 years. We camped for many years up at Rotters Rock, and we bought a house in 2007, and we have been doing short-term rentals since 2010. So for about 13 years, we do 2 to 4 weeks per year. This is a lovely community, and tonight's forum has really been filled with very many thoughtful comments from people who represent both views, both for and against. Very thoughtful, very sensible dialogue, and the impact statements. I think that was a good framework for the questions, is that how does this ordinance affect you? The ordinance, the gentleman who just spoke about the existing ordinance that's in place, that really should be the starting point. What elements of the existing ordinance are deficient in addressing these alleged problems? One of the tasks that would be worthwhile to do, I know the committee, I went through all the minutes of the committee, there were 11 meetings, the committee members had thoughtful conversations, they worked very hard on what they were working on, but they began with the premise of that there's this problem. And we never got to the point where, what does that problem really look like? How many nuisance calls are there? How many violations currently exist? How many properties have been purchased to do short-term rental that have pushed out residents and created the so-called affordable housing issue? That should be established, because at the end of the day, if the board were to adopt the ordinance, how would it know? How would the community know if the ordinance worked? We don't have a starting point. We don't know a before and an after. So I would say, and almost every person from both perspectives has talked about some level of regulation. The people opposed to the ordinance say it's too complicated and burdensome. And I frankly, you read the thing, it's very, very light on actually what constitutes a violation. If the CEO had to go out to your home, to a STR, and because some kid was playing in the lake, what is he going to do? Is he going to say, is that a violation? Ordinance doesn't say anything. Ordinance provides almost no guidance to define what a violation is. So it's lacking in sort of the teeth that I think almost everybody is willing to the gentleman who spoke about the existing ordinance. The existing ordinance can be modified to include some level of enforcement. What happens if I have a problematic renter next door to me? Who can I call, right? That's many of the people who are concerned about this really just want to know, hey, my neighbor's away, I can't get a hold of anybody. I just need to have this problem addressed. There's a poor behaving renter. In the 13 years we've rented, we had one. We thought they were a bad renter. Nobody complained about them, but we knew they were a bad renter, and we never rented to them again. There's so many things in the rental activity that are self-reinforcing. If you ran your house into the ground, or if you had bad renters, you're not having them back. It's a self-reinforcing thing. Market forces will create good behaviors. My plea to the town board and to the committee is go back to the drawing board a little bit. Establish some facts that are the basis of why we're doing this. Instead of coming up with an ordinance that's looking for a problem, define what that problem is. Get real data. One of the committee members I spoke to the other day said in Warrensburg, only 2 complaints were registered. We're spending all this time for 2 complaints. Or 10. I don't know how many. Nobody knows how many complaints. And the second thing is the hypothesis or the allegation that STR activity, which has been going on, as this woman pointed out, has been going on for decades in town. Has that led to a lack of affordable housing? There are huge issues on our economy and tax law and interest rates that have far more effect on affordable housing here in Hague than the short-term rental activity. Short-term rental activity is conducted mostly by people who've had homes in Hague for decades. And how many speakers did we hear say, "Oh, I do this so that I can pass my home on to my next generation"? Well, if we start taking that away, the whole allure, any of the energy that the community gets out of the STR will go away. The question is, what would replace it? There's nothing. Nobody's knocking down on the doors to come here to Hague and say, "Hey, we want to create jobs." That should be a focus of the town, right? We need more jobs, so there would be more housing and more people could stay. Why? Since 1930, the population of Hague has gone down to 679 people. 679. It's gone down precipitously in the last 20 years because young people can't find a job that is a year-round, good-paying job. That has nothing to do with the STR. And that's the primary factor that is driving so-called affordable housing, reducing the stock of affordable housing. So I would just simply urge the board and the committee to go back to work and listen to some of the comments and the input of the community, from both sides. And I think at the end of the day, come up with a simplified ordinance that's fairly straightforward. Just applying for to be an STR now, I need to provide every signature of every person on the deed. I need to have a survey of my property. It's like mind-boggling. I can get I applied to be on the sewer system a couple years ago. That was by far much easier. Just use whatever process you have for the sewer system. Use that for the STR. You don't have to create this whole new, administrative burden. Is ridiculous.
All right, I guess your time
Yes,
is up.
my time's up. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank all the committee members for their work. They did a great job. The accusations of bias, I think, are unfounded. If you go through the minutes, it was really a thoughtful undertaking.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes.
Hello, I am Dylan Mankey, 9702 Graphite Mountain Road, Hague, and also Ticonderoga. I would like to thank the board, the committee for the time spent doing this, and also the public for coming out tonight. I'm probably one of the youngest people in the room. I appreciate the wisdom, the knowledge that you all have shared from your many, many years in Hague. I'm semi-new. I came to Ticonderoga 5 years ago, I moved from up by the Canadian border, from Rushton, New York. I don't know if you all know where that is. Up by Malone.
Right.
Much smaller than Hague. My partner and I bought the house after doing extensive research for about a year. Everywhere from Saratoga to Plattsburgh. We worked with a realtor, Regular Realty. He was great. Sorry. So we worked with him for about a year, maybe longer, to find the perfect place that we wanted to buy, to escape to. Our house in Ticonderoga is right across from the bus garage and the school up on Alexandria. It's loud. The kids and the buses and everything. So we wanted to find a place when we're not working to escape to that's quiet, and we found Graphite Mountain Road right on the brook, which is awesome. I've fallen asleep a couple nights now by the brook, enjoying it. We've decided to list on Airbnb to help with the taxes, the mortgage, and all of that. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Turn around.
I wanted to touch on the tourism part of it. I think that Mr. Ramont has done a great job with the Hague Beach, with the food trucks and the music. I saw the supervisor there the other day with one of my great customers from Burley Luncheonette in Ticonderoga. He's done a great job with that. I want to touch on some of the tourism that is in Ticonderoga. We are your closest neighbor. We're only 10 minutes away. We have the fort, which brings in 75,000 people a year. We have Star Trek, which brings in, I talked to him today, about 10,000 people, not including online sales or events, such as Shatner coming in, which is 1,500 to 2,000 people for that weekend that come into town. These people need places to stay. We have a problem with lodging. I talk to people in the restaurant, every single event, that have to stay in Plattsburgh, Indian Lake, and Lake George area, and then they lift Uber and taxi to Ticonderoga for the weekend. So we need these short-term rentals. We need places like Beach House. We need hotels, motels. We all have our own niche that we have. People that, when they're booking for a vacation, they are looking at, Airbnbs. If you want to have a place that you have, the kitchen and the living room and stuff. If you want to be able to have a bed and some amenities, you book someplace else. So we need these places. There's room for all of us. We can get along together. I promise you that. One thing that I would like to bring up is I would like to offer to sit down with some of the board members to come up with an ordinance. I know we've talked about this before. I would like to volunteer to sit down and be a voice of one of the short-term rental owners. I'm new, so I don't know everything. None of us know anything, or everything, but I would like to volunteer to do that, to help out. To give a voice, a new voice, a younger voice, and then to join in with some of the wisdom of the more mature people that have the knowledge and wisdom that I don't have. So I would like to offer that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you all very much.
All right, anyone else? If not, what I would like to do is I'd like to go back to the committee members and the board members. Okay, I'm sorry, come up, please.
Hi, good evening. Hi, my name is Jesse Lena. I own a house on Split Rock Road. I'm also a licensed real estate broker in Saratoga. I've been a broker since 1998. I'm on the Board of Assessment Review there for the last couple of years, and dealt with a couple boards there for many years. I used to own a house in Bolton and sold that and bought a house here. So I liked that it was quieter and closer to the lake and more affordable. So I did some research and I found that short-term rentals have actually been going on in the town since before it was incorporated. Benjamin Franklin stayed here in 1757 on the way to Canada and on the way back. It was an encampment and it was less than 6 days he stayed here. I have cottages on my property property, and I short-term rental my property when I'm not there. And like many people, it helps offset the taxes, it helps pay the mortgage. I wouldn't have been able to afford it if I hadn't done that. And I think that's the same boat a lot of people are in. And from a real estate standpoint, I understand, I've been involved in affordable housing, and one thing I've learned in the last 15 or 20 years in dealing with it was ordinances and laws had little effect on affordable housing. It had to be built kind of from the ground up, or a property renovated and turned into affordable housing. Trying to make current homeowners, decrease their property values or limit who can buy their homes has never really worked. It has brought down property values, but it's never really helped anyone buy the house. So to follow that logic, if this ordinance were to go through, and I would estimate that you'd eliminate probably 2 or 3 pools of buyers, which would be people buying an investment property, people buying a second home that hope to rent it during certain periods of time, people buying an owner-occupied house that maybe they want to rent it for a couple weekends or 2 months and leave for the summer. It would negatively affect, it would eliminate those pools in a lot of ways, because they wouldn't buy in Hague. They'd buy in Bolton, they'd buy in Ticonderoga. If you know you can't rent your house to help offset some of your costs for 3 years, you're not going to buy here. Or if it's limited to 6 days and you want to do a couple weekends, you're not going to buy here. So I think the economics of this need to be looked at, for everybody who's a homeowner, not just a short-term renter or rental owner. It's going to negatively affect the property values of everyone in this town if this goes through, in my opinion. While not creating any affordable housing. If someone's property were to go down 10% and their property is $300,000 or $400,000, that's a difference of about $125 to $150 on a mortgage. And right now there's 14 properties on the market, 7 of which are land. I think 3 or 4 over $1 million. There's 3 or 4 properties between $500,000 and $800,000. Unfortunately, sometimes you can't afford to live in a certain area that you want to live in. So, I want to live on the lake. I can't afford to live there. There's things that I want to do that I can't afford to do. It's a problem that's affecting the whole country, but I don't think this ordinance helps with that. I don't think it solves any of those problems. And this, 6-day rental period and 3-year rental period are being pushed forward in under that guise, that it helps with affordable housing, and I just don't see the connection there. As many people have pointed out, I don't see the data, and I look through this stuff on a daily basis. What's sold, what's on the market. Property values have gone down a little bit, about 1.7% in the last year, and I think this would worsen that. I don't think anybody wants their property value to go down, and I think this would do that. I think it's short-sighted in looking at that. I don't think it's well thought out. One thing I would also say, I've been involved with the short-term rental meetings in Saratoga Springs. There's been 4, I think, and there are 300 or 400 people that come to those. Short-term rentals have been around forever there, as long as the track has been there. And what they've chosen to do is follow what New York State is proposing, which I think is level-headed and makes sense, and I think solves about 90% of the issues that were raised here this evening, which is, and I'm going to gloss over it, not super specifically. So you would register your short-term rental with the town. You'd pay a fee to do so. In doing so, they would have a contact number, and if you're not local, they would have a local agent also. So a realtor, a friend, a neighbor, someone, if there's a problem, a neighbor has a problem, someone can be called, and they're local, they're down the street. And I think that's a big improvement on what we have now, where you don't know if your neighbor's in Florida or where anybody is. I think that solves that problem. They also do a safety check. So smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguisher. In a lot of cases, you fill out an affidavit attesting to that. So there is some enforcement of that if you don't have those things, but it doesn't create an extra job for the zoning office or the town. But that's the basics of it: the registration, the safety check, and a local agent if you're not a local person. Yeah, and lastly, I've talked to other business owners in the area, and it would seem like the resources of the town and the board, and I appreciate them trying to come up with a solution. I don't honestly see a huge problem here. I see some neighbors who are very concerned and have had issues. I mean, there's been parties going on forever. It's just, I don't know that you need all this. I mean, I remember being in high school and college, and we used to come up. I lived in Niskayuna and Saratoga, and we used to come up to Lake George and Bolton, and we'd party late. And I mean, sometimes the police would get called. I don't know why that needs to change with this. I mean, it seems like there's laws on the books and ordinances already in zoning that address all these things, and maybe that should be the conversation, if they're not being addressed. But it just seems like a huge overreach to me.
Okay.
And it doesn't really solve anything.
I appreciate those comments.
Okay, thank you.
One last call for the audience, and then I would like to go back to the committee members. So they've listed all these comments and some criticisms. I didn't know if any of you people down through there are interested in responding to anything. Chris? No? Bill?
No, except that I know you, the board, love this town, and I'm trusting you to be considerate of the residents of Hague in this town and the love for it. And then I trust you, you're going to make the right choice.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Sandy?
I would like to thank the few people who thanked the committee. We did put an enormous amount of time in.
Yep.
We are 100% dedicated to this town. There was absolutely no ulterior motive on any person on this committee. We did have contentious meetings. Yes, we did, because as demonstrated in this meeting tonight, it is an emotional topic and it affects everybody in the town. There's contentious meetings that occur in the town board, if you come to the town board meetings. It's kind of always interesting. People tend to come out only for a subject that particularly addresses them. But you should all come to the town board meetings on a regular basis. It's good to be involved in the town. I do think the main purpose of our work was to do something to preserve the quality of life in primarily residential neighborhoods. That is the purpose, and we obviously can make every single person in the town happy. I think what might have happened also is this is happening nationwide, and if you read about this topic, just go on and Google it. It's a difficult topic nationwide. I think what happened in Hague is that we saw that every town around us was doing this, so perhaps certain people thought, oh, okay, we need to do this too, which perhaps led to this whole process. And everybody's comments today were valid in many ways, and I think that it does behoove the town of Hague to enforce the laws that are already there. And that is sometimes the problem that our town has with our limited resources, is enforcing the laws that we already have. But I want to thank my fellow committee members. I think you did an excellent job.
Yes, you did. I certainly agree with you on that. John?
Nothing to add.
Good. Josh?
Yeah, my name is Joshua Patchett. I'm from the town of Hague. I've been here my whole life. By my very nature, I'm a simple guy. I've always have been. Do I find the document to be wordy and extensive and even somewhat hard to interpret for the average Joe? Absolutely. But, the fact of the matter is that we are seeing an increase in short-term rentals in the town of Hague. And, we're worried about where we're going to be 10 or 20 years from now if we do absolutely nothing. Are we going to reflect on this moment potentially and say, you know what, we should have done something to slow the growth? Is the 6 days too much? It very well might be. And I think that's why I'm here. I think that's why the whole town board is here. You have spoken loudly. We are listening and comprehending and are going to take a lot of thought and consideration into everything you're all saying. Do I think that the 3-year waiting period is a bad idea? Absolutely not. I think it's a very preventative measure that we're trying to do to help slow the growth, maybe give working families the first shot rather than people that just want to invest in the town. Anyone in here that has a short-term rental, that let's just say you have 1 or 2 or whatever that purpose is, you shouldn't have a problem with that unless you want to have 3 and you want to make a business of the town of Hay. And we don't want to be just a short-term rental community in 20 years from now. I'm worried about my fellow neighbors that aren't here representing themselves. We're here representing them, and we're not trying to paint the picture that you're the enemy. We absolutely recognize the... Excuse me, did you have something to say, Tony?
No, I was...
Oh, you were... Oh, okay, I thought you were interrupting.
Just my tongue out either.
What's that?
I wasn't sticking my tongue out either.
No, I just didn't speak to anyone when you were, that's all. I noticed that.
No, sorry.
No, I accept your apology.
Won't ask again.
Got it. But, you know, we just want to make sure we're making the right move for the community, trying to be well thought out, and we're worried, like I said, where we're going to end up. And we appreciate you all coming out here. I think that's... I just think that if we have slow, steady growth, it's better than waiting and doing nothing and seeing basically no properties available for families. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Maureen?
No comment right now.
Steve?
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out, and we've made a lot of notes on your comments, and some of the comments are filtering right into the proposal as it sits now, and some of them need to be tweaked a little bit. So, but again, thank you for coming out and expressing your thoughts and concerns. I appreciate it.
All right, Jack? Thank you, Steve. You good?
Good. The same feeling.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Right, I want to thank everyone for coming to. I want to kind of go along with what Josh had to say. I think he expressed it very well for us, and he's been very passionate about this from the very beginning. It's something that really concerns him, with the town turning into a short rental community. He has a young family, so it's understandable that he's going to be concerned about what happens to the town. Just so you know, we will be taking all of these comments that you made into consideration, decide how we can make changes to it. If we need to make amendments to it, we will certainly work at doing that, because that's the whole point of it. We needed to hear what you had to say, and if we aren't going to listen to that, then we really haven't done our job with that either. But thank you all very much. And John, did you have anything else that you'd like to say?
No, the only thing I could say is, if you think any of the issues raised here tonight, everything that everybody raised on both sides has been deliberated by this board and by this committee. So you all raised things that are points of contention between the people on the board and the committee when they were discussing this. So, and I very much appreciate you guys coming out and reinforcing that and letting us know that the very issues that we're debating are the same issues that concern you. So I thank everybody for coming out.
And if I could say one thing.
Yes, Kim.
You know, I just want to say that I have faith in this town board. You know, I short-term rent when I go out of town. I support the short-term rentals. I also know that it's not just Tim that works for the highway garage that lives out of town. My son just recently moved out of town. We also have another person for the highway garage that lives out of town. So we have 3 of our 5 highway department guys that live out of town. So when the long-term people are here, the short-term people are gone, and we get 3 feet of snow, Tim can't get to work, Taylor can't get to work, and Ernie can't get to work, whose problem is it then? That's where kind of the long-term rental thing, I think, plays a little bit of effect in this. and with the long-term rental or people in the town, it also increases the employee pool. When the town is looking to hire, or anybody's looking to hire, there's general contractors that turn down contractors here because they couldn't find people to work, and that's a nationwide problem too. But I'm just asking, as a resident, not the town clerk, to have the faith in this town board that I do, that they're gonna make the right decisions, because they have not made any decisions as of right now. And that's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Jane.
I don't know if you want to take one more comment.
I'll take the last comment.
Okay, this is a question from Andrea Siska. If the committee's concern is 20 years from now, why is there no grandfather clause?
Good question.
Tell Andrea, the town attorney says that's an excellent question.
Andrea, the town attorney says it's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm going to.
Can I say something off the record? I just want to say.
Excuse me.
I'm not going to repeat anything brought up because I haven't had very good issues. But, and they don't live here, I have a family that I know very well, a very large family. The parents have deceased in the past couple of years. They live on the lake. None of them live here with their house on the lake. They have been forced to go through short-term renters just to pay the taxes on the house. Where does that come in with that 3-year wait? Because if they had to wait 3 years, they'd have lost that family house. But they all plan on retiring there eventually. But they're all involved out of town and their own families raising them and they want to live on the house. They do come time to time to come and stay. But in order for them to hold on that property, and they're pretty well to do because the tax is so high. How does that work with a 3-year period? Not that I'm against or for anything, but.
They already own the property.
They already own the property.
Period would not apply
But it's the taxes, like, I know people that have a small camp on the lake, with not much front for it, and their taxes are $10,000 a year. You imagine a huge house with a lot of beachfront.
Jenny Lou, the 3-year waiting period would not apply to that person.
Oh, see, there you go, so we don't.
Right, because it's part of the.
Nor would it apply
And
to,
not a personal concern, because we don't have anything like that. And I'm not a short-term renter anymore, which I never had a problem with. And Al's not.
Okay, I would like to entertain.
Once in a while, we help each other out.
Okay. Pat, very quickly, Pat, please.
Well, wait, if you're going to go on, you're going to have to come back up here again. I thought it was over, but you have to come up here and talk.
Just speak up and make it quick. Go ahead. Go ahead.
People keep coming in when the fireworks are, so when I go to work tomorrow, people say, the fireworks are, I guess they go to the.
August the 16th. Is that what you're asking us? When are they?
When are they?
August the 16th, providing it doesn't rain. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to close.
Jack will second that motion. All those in